Fine. So in today's class, we'll be talking about Docker, and we'll be going and creating our image. We'll be pushing it to a registry. Now the registry can be Docker Hub also, or it can be in GCP, or in our case, it can be in something known as ECR or Elastic Container Registry. So we'll go create a sample image, run that particular image, create a container out of it and see it works. After that, the same thing we are going to push inside AWS and see that it works. So it is going to happen in two ways. First, without ECR and ECS. Second, with ECR and ECS. Okay. So first of all, let's go and do it the classic way, in which we go launch an instance. Now, our advice is that whenever you launch an instance, it should ideally be a bigger instance. So don't take a micro instance. At least make it small or something so that things happens faster. So let's take a T3 a medium instance right now and launch it straight away. This and launch the instance. Next step, we are going to go and make a connection with this very instance over here. So now everything that we do happens on the console. So let's go to that folder and let it come up. In the meantime, let me go and create this by node server. So here and click on the connect button, get this and done. So okay, it means the machine is still starting up now. It is still initializing, that's fine. Okay, let's try now. Yes, and I should have connected to the machine. So right now I'm inside this machine. Now first step, always go and do sudo apt-get update first. Now next step is to go and install Docker inside my machine. So just go and Docker Ubuntu install. Search for it. The commands will be there, though ideally the easy option is just go and type Docker. It will tell you that you can install it via this, but the thing is that it will install this version of Docker. Okay, I want the latest version of Docker right now. So for that, I'll just go and open this. This document is from Docker Hub itself or from Docker itself. So let's get started. Step one, whenever you want to install any software like this, first of all, you go and remove everything and then you install. Now, I very well know that right now, because it's a new instance, I do not have any version of Docker installed, but it's a good habit to start. First, remove everything and then install that. So next step, update here. Next step, copy this command here. It is all written in that order only. Step one, step two, step three, like that. Don't do anything. Whatever is written, just go and run it as it is. It is automatically going to install everything which is required as part of Docker. So okay, this is done. Just go and get the key. To verify that the key is that key only, so you can go and type this. This message should exactly match this message. This basically verifies that you are downloading the package from official Docker repository itself. Then go over here, copy this command. This step is going to go and get the required files to actually go and install Docker. Once it is done, do this. Also pay attention to this ARM-HF and ARM64. If by chance you happen to work on A instance or any T4 instance or M6 instance or R6 instance, in that case, you will be going and making a ARM64 over here. So the only thing that changes is architecture equal to ARM64 or architecture equal to ARM-HF or architecture equal to AMD64. Now this is both x86 and 64, so don't worry that it is a AMD processor or not. What should bother you more is that whether it's a ARM machine or a x86 machine. Now, generally speaking, if you're working on servers, it will generally always be x86, so you can assume it is this only. Anyhow, going back, final command, just go and do an update, which we have done, and then go and install Docker over there. So this and this, it will ask for the permission, say Y over here, and Docker should be installed inside my machine now. Let it happen. In the meantime, we will just see that after I do Docker, what I have to do. So once I have installed Docker successfully, in that case, after that I will have to go and create a image. Then once the image is there, I'll go and run that image inside my container. So I go and run the image, it becomes a container, and that container works inside my instance basically. Okay, so now if Docker is installed, just go and type Docker, and you should not see the previous command where it says command not found. I see this, and that is perfectly fine. So let's go back. Now step one, let's go and create a temporary folder. Let's call it by node server files. Okay, so go and do this. So it's always good not to do things inside the root folder. Now here I will create the files required for my Node.js code. So these files generally are given to you by the developers, so you don't have to worry on that. For now we will go and create a sample one right now. So let's go and create package.json. I have to write the content. Let me just get it, though if you want you can also type the same thing. So let's say name, and I need Docker code, and then the main thing is scripts, opens and closes, and then start, and I give, let's say, node and server.js. This is the command required to run my Node.js code. And then let's give the version also. Version is 0.0.1, and let's say description also, and give this is the Node.js sample server, and maybe author, and the script is there, and then yes, dependencies, the things which are required to actually run this particular server. This is there, and this will close over here, and inside this I'll have to give the dependencies. Dependencies is express server, and I need it on something like 4.16.1. Okay, now if everything is done, if anyhow it's not done, it will error out. We will realize it later, then that's fine. This file is done, and now we go and create the main file, which is my server.js. Okay, so for that, let me just go and copy it from a place. Here. The important thing is that it is working on port 8080, and this port is 0000, which means that server in itself. And let's go and write hello world. This is the sample Node.js code. Now, if everything is done, the final thing that you have to do is the main thing inside Docker, which is your Docker file, which you have to write it now. Okay, so let's go and start writing that file. First, from I will give the version of node which is required over here. Then let's say I want to copy and package star.json, the same file which I have copied, which I have created some time back, and I will copy it to my whatever location I am on. Then I will do a run, and I will do npm install. This command is there for your Node.js dependencies. If you are working on pip, you give pip install. If you're working on node, you give npm install, and like that. Okay, then whatever you have created, just copy it to that folder. Then on what port it has to work, 8080. If you remember, the server that we created was on 8080 only anyhow. And then finally I give the commands over there where I say npm and comma start. Okay, now if everything is good, let's go and start to build that. So to build, just go and type sudo docker build -t and give the name. So let's call it node server and give a dot over there. Okay, or let's call it node web server maybe, and give a dot. Now at this time, it will tell you if at all any error was there. So right now it is telling me that I don't know what this file is. So let's go and fix that. So over here, the error is there. If you have understood the error, if you see copy, run, this copy, this expose, and this CMD. Okay, so the problem in this one is, okay, first of all, let's fix this one. From should not have this. So let's go and do a build again. And now it again gives the error over here. That was what we saw. So have a look. Space is there, space is there, space, space, space. Here also give a space. So if you don't anyhow it errors out, it is going to tell you line by line what the error is. Okay, Now that everything is done, just go and do a build out of it, and it should build that particular image. First time it will take time because it has to download the Node.js version 8 library. Why version 8? Because in my Docker file I had written version 8. So let it happen. Now, if I am working on this one, I have to work on EC2, then I have to work on Docker, then I have to work on ECR, then I have to go and work on ECS also, so and IAM, all these things. Fine. Now, by the way, if everything is good, let's go and check if the image is actually built. For that, just go and type sudo docker images, and I do see my image is there, node web server. This node is the dependency of this. That is why I see that also. To run it, just go and type sudo docker run -p 8080. I'm working on port 8080 right now, and just give the name of the server, node web server, and hit enter. If everything is good, it should give me an error and it tells me invalid name docker code. Okay, so now let's go and fix that. Why does it give me that error docker code? For that, you will have to go and check where have you written docker code. If you have realized it by now, though it was telling you here also, invalid name npm warning docker code. Okay, no worries, let's go and fix it over here. You see this name cannot have space and this, so let's go and fix it, docker code over here, and then go and do a build again. This time it will happen comparatively faster because node version 8 is already there. Okay, now if everything is good, let's go and do the run again. Sudo docker run -p 8080 colon 8080 and give the name of the image, which is node web server here. Finally, if everything is good, you can go to your web server over here, and this part and this part and 8080, which you would have also understood, it is not going to work because my EC2 instance has to work on a specific security group, and that security group is not allowing port 8080. So for that, let's go inside my inbound rule, edit inbound rules, add rule. Here, go and make it 8080, anywhere, and save rules. Now, if everything is good, you should see this particular message over here coming up where it says, hello world, this is sample node.js code, the same thing which we had written inside our server.js file. So this is how you create Docker images, and then you go and run it inside this particular machine, which is my Docker container now. Okay, so Docker container is done. We are good. Now this image right now, it does exist inside my image over here, which is my node web server, which I created a minute ago. So it exists over here, but the issue right now is that this image is inside my local. Now I have two options. Either I push it inside Docker Hub, or another way I can go and push it inside my ECR. Okay, over here, ECR, Elastic Container Registry. But before I push it to ECR, I'll have to make some permission changes, which we are going to do now. So first thing first, I'll go and create a repository inside my ECR, where let's call it as a node web server. Fine. And I go and click on create repository. Now, if this node web server is there, you just click over there and it will tell you that what all commands you have to do if you have to make it to work. For that, just go and copy this. Also, it says that you have to go and install AWS CLI. Please keep that in mind, AWS CLI. So first of all, I understand that I will have to install AWS CLI, which you already know. If I type AWS, it gives me the error, and it also gives me the command to install that. So I give that, I press Y over here. AWS CLI is getting installed inside my machine right now. But AWS CLI has to work against a user. So, and that user also I have to create inside IAM. So let it happen. After that, we will go and create a user and give it the permission for ECR. So now if everything is done, just go and type AWS. It should at least not give you that error that command AWS not found as earlier. Now I'll have to go and give the credentials over there. So for that, just go and type AWS configure, which is empty. So now I go to my IAM and I will create a user, or if I have a user already, I'm going to use that user and give it the permission for ECR. Okay, so I already have a user over here, which is known as migration user one. So I click on migration user one and I will give it certain permissions. So, okay, it already has a permission. So rather what I will do is I will go and create a new user only so you can see from scratch. So let's call this user as Docker -AWS. And I give it programmatic access and I click on next permissions and I will have to attach the policies directly. So if you go over here and type ECR, you are going to see that these permissions, by the way, are AWS managed. I don't see anything over here for image build and this. So you can type and go for container where EC2 container registry read only and all these access are there. So in short, what you will have to do is you will have to go and give the, either you will have to go and give the ECR full access, which is something like this, ECR star, or in our case, what I will do is I will just create the user right now. I won't give any permission to it, and then I will go and myself go and create the permission so that you can see that also. Doesn't have any permission, fair enough. Click on create user, in which case you have the access key ID. So access key ID is this, secret access key is this, region name is AP South 1, output format I am giving as table, and let's leave it over here. Now the next step or the next logical step is to go and create a policy. Okay, so policy, you click on create policy and you can give the JSON and you will have to go and give the permission for ECR over there. So permissions for ECR, if you remember yesterday, we had already talked about that, that inside ECR, you can go and you have the main things as EAR, okay, effect action resource. What I will do, go back to policies, create policy and JSON and this. In short, it simply means that the version number anyhow remains the same. That statement I am allowing everything on ECR and this. Okay, so next tag, and let's say in this one, next tags and review and give it permission. So let's say ECR all permission. Okay, give and create policy, and this policy now I'm going to go and attach it to my user, which I had created some time back. So the policy name is ECR all permission. Let's remember that. Go back to user, Docker AWS permission, no permissions, fine. Attach policies directly, go and search for your permission. You have that, click here and click on review and click on add permissions. Now it has ECR all permission and we are all good till here now. So let's go back over here, and right now I don't see any image created inside my repository. So for that, I just go and click on view push command. I go copy it like this and just paste it over here. And now it is going to give me an error that it is having a problem in Docker socket. The reason is that once you're trying to log into this, we have installed Docker without the root command, so it needs sudo command before that. So let's just go and copy this thing and just write sudo before this. Okay, so I have installed Docker without sudo permissions. Now if everything is good, you should see this message, login succeeded. If login succeeded is there, you can do a build, which we had already done, but no harm in doing it again anyhow. Done. This time it took less time because it was already done and everything is there anyhow. Okay, now build is done. Just go and copy this command there. Just write sudo before that and you have tagged it, and finally go and do a push over here, sudo this and this. Now if everything is good, ideally you should see a push over here. Now some quick points over here, just noted, you might see some errors over here where first time it says if the permission issues are there. For that, the thing might be that you have gone for the permissions inside ECR, something like this. I'll show you the sample. So if you go to Google and just type ECR permissions over here, In this case, it will tell you the permissions, and ideally you give only this permission. If you are just blindly copy pasting it, you will just go and give describe image and describe repositories, okay, which actually means you are only giving the read permission. Same thing over here. If you go to the next one, by default AWS, the permission that it will give you will be this. Okay, so if you just go and copy paste it as it is, if you see, it is all get, check, get, list, list, describe, batch, get, list, describe. In short, it's only the read permissions. So at that moment, you might see a error over here. So if you see a error over here, then you will obviously go and make the changes by ECR and giving it star, or this command itself is going to tell you the permission what it is expecting. So in that case, it has the permission. Now again, you go back and run the same command again over here. Remember, the permissions do take some time basically. So wait in for a few seconds, or ideally in a good scenario, wait in for 2 to 5 minutes for the permissions to get propagated across AWS. After that, go and make the changes over here and it should all work. Now going back to my ECR, if everything is done and I click on refresh over here, I should see my image coming up, which is the of the latest tag, and it was created at this time, which is of this much size, and my image URI is this, and that's my digest over here. So I do have my image inside my ECR. Now the only job left is for my ECS, which I am going to do now. Now I already have my repository, which is over here, which is my ECR actually. Now, I don't honestly need anything else. I'm good with that. So my ECR is inside my repository over here, the latest tag. If you want to see, you can click over there and it will tell you that at what time it was done and what does it have. And these things, Node web server, it is this one. And if any problem was there. So ECR gives you this additional thing that you can automatically go and do a scan of your repository to see if any problem was there inside your repository. So this image URI, I am going to need it anyhow in some time, but we will come back to that anyhow. First thing that you have to do is you have to go and work on ECS. Okay, so let's go to ECS and just click on get started over here, and we'll click on create cluster right now. So now there are three types of cluster: networking only, which is by Fargate, in which case you don't have to do honestly anything. Everything happens on its own. That's the easy way to do it. And then you can do with Linux on networking or EC2 on Windows and networking. Now I do know that Linux is way cheaper, more secure, and the companies actually go for Linux. So that's the reason why I'll go for EC2 Linux and networking. So right now what I'm doing, I'm just creating a cluster. So just understand, I'm just creating a machine. That's it. Nothing is going to work inside my machine, but the machine that I create will be a EC2 machine. So for that reason alone, I'll see a EC2 instance actually coming up. So let's go to EC2 Linux plus networking. Just click on next step over here and give a name to this one. So I'll just go and name it web node web server, the same name as my ECR, but it's not necessary. That's because I feel that it's better if you name it the same way. You are free to name it anything. Then again, you can create an empty cluster, but there's no point of creating an empty cluster, honestly. Uh, so you can create an on-demand instance or a spot instance. I'm going for an on-demand instance. You can select the instance type over here. I am selecting a T instance because M5 are pretty expensive. So let's go for a T3A medium instance right now. I want one instance. AMI ID, I have two options over here, Amazon Linux 1 or 2. I am selecting the latest one, 2. My volume, I am selecting 30 GB. Key pair, if you want, you can give, though if you don't give a key pair, it's even better because now AWS manages it. And if you yourself don't have the key pair, then no one else also can log in inside your machine. Okay, so that's the reason why I'm not putting a key pair over here. It becomes more secure basically. Now if you want, you can create a new VPC over here. You might also want to see, that's the reason why we always start the VPC with 10 only. Generally people have a question, why do you always do with 10? The thing is that it's a standard that whenever you create a private VPC, it starts with 10. For now, because I already have a VPC, I'll just select that VPC, though it's not important. You can select any VPC that you want. Okay, I'm putting it inside my subnet over here. The public IP, if you want, you can give. If you don't want, you don't give. Anyhow, it doesn't matter much because the SSH isn't there. So security group, I'm creating a new security group. That is fine. And I'm enabling port number 80. Though I can do it 8080 over here now itself because I know that my image is going to work on 8080 only, but I'll do that later. Okay, my cluster is going to work on this particular role. I can either do it myself or I can let them do it. for me, in which case it will automatically happen. And if I want to enable the container insights, in this case AWS is going to tell me how much CPU, memory, disk and network is going to actually be used. This you might want to know. It's inside CloudWatch or inside when you want to monitor your applications, okay, the APM as we call it, or the cloud process management, or whenever you just want to monitor the stuff, you can do that. You can go and enable container insights in that case. So let's go click on create over here. Now just remember, this step takes time. Okay, so ECS cluster will take its own time, ECS policy will take its own time, and cloud formation stack, this takes quite some time. Anyhow, as we said that if it is being created, I should see a new instance coming up inside my EC2. So in the meantime, let's go to EC2, where I should generally see two instances the moment it actually goes and creates a stack on top of it. So let it come. Let me remove the filters so that I will see the instance the moment it is loading. So if you see over here, I do see an instance which is actually coming up. This is my server, which I created some time back. And this is the server that AWS has created. How do you know? ECS instance hyphen EC2 container service. This is by AWS themselves, and Node Web Server because you named it as Node Web Server. This has a public IP also. We will come back to that anyhow. So if everything is done, you are actually pretty good to start. Then you can go and click on view cluster, and you can see that I see a cluster over here. Now, does it actually mean that I go over here and I go like this and I type 8080? Will it work? Actually, no. Two reasons for that. First of all, though, your security group itself is not allowing port 8080. So let's go and do that first thing. Here you can go and make it 8080 over here and make it anywhere and click on save rules, in which case if you go and refresh it again, it's still not going to work, because the reason is pretty straightforward. You have just created a cluster. As of now, you have just created a machine over here, okay, and it does not have anything on top of it. So that's the reason why it's not even doing this. So right now let me just go and remove 8080. We will come back later on this one and enable it. Okay, so the problem is with my over here is yes. For that, let's go and create a task now. And this task, we will go and deploy it inside my ECS. Okay, so I have my server over here, fair enough. So let's go to create new task definition, or go here, and then inside this task over here, you can see that you do have whatever network mode is there, the task name is there, execution role, and these all things. This is for whatever I had created earlier. So I'll go and create one task on my own and click on create new task definition. Now there are two things over here. Either you can do it on Fargate, which is AWS managed infrastructure, or you can do it inside EC2. So in this one, Fargate, AWS manages everything. You don't have to do anything at all. And AWS will automatically go and create instances how it does. So consider it more like your, if you want to, like your Lambda, wherein the resources you give and it is automatically happening. In this case, we are doing it now because we do have an instance that we have created. We are going to use EC2 for that reason. So click on next step, give a task name over here. Let's say node web server over here. Role, if you don't do, AWS is going to create automatically. Network mode, let it be default, or you can create which if VPC or none. If you remember in the Fargate, they were automatically selecting AWS VPC over here. Now the important thing is that if I'm creating a container, I have to give some configurations to that container. So right now, let's go and give it, let's say 512 MB of RAM. Okay, and if you want, you can give a CPU over here. This generally errors out, so let's leave it like that. It is automatically going to take it. And the important thing is to go and add a container over here. So my RAM right now is 512 MB, which it is going to take from that instance. So click on add containers, and this is important actually because I'll have to give my image name over here. So to get the image name, let's go back to our ECR here. Okay, here it is, this part, and let's just first right now, so you can give any name over here. So let's say node server or node web server, and then say anything, let's say hyphen container or something like that. Okay, here you will have to give the image name. So the image name happens to be this node web server here, and if you see on latest, you will get the image URI over here, or you can go here also, repository here also, and you can copy it from here. Anyways, it works. So this one I give like this over here, and I'm putting a limit of, let's say it has to work at max in 256 MB only. And this is the important thing where the port has to happen. So if you remember, my container was working on port 8080, so I give 8080 over here and 8080 over here. And if everything is good, I can go and click on add over here. So now if this all is good, 512 MB RAM, I have given a container over here. If I want to add a volume, I can add a volume. If I want some ECS to give logs to AWS services, I can give that also over here. If I want to add proxy, I can do, but right now my work on server 8080 and these things should suffice for me. For that reason, I go and click on create over here. And now if my task is all done, remember the task name was node server 8080. Now if I go back to my clusters over here, I should ideally see my container. Uh, so I do have a node web server over here, and then if I go here and a new task, that task which I had already created some time back. So I had created node web server here and revision whatever it is compatible. Okay, fine. This one and this one. The reason why it is not compatible with this one is that in this case the version that we have taken is the new one. So let's just go back to our here and let's do it once more. So basically I go to my cluster over here, services I don't want, this is a task at the end of the day, so I click on task. By the way, if you want to see the instance, you can see it from here also. EC2 instance, the same one. Click on task right now, run new task, and whatever EC2 it's there, server I had created node web server, this part here, and click on run task. And if everything is good, ideally you should see it in some time, where I'll have to go and enable port number 8080 also. That I'll be doing it shortly. And I do see my instance running. So let's go to the instance, and I had this instance over here. So let's just select that here, bring it up somewhat, and security here and security groups here, and then let's just go and add port number 8080. Okay. Though you don't need 80, fine, that's fine. Just click on save rules, and now if everything is good, you go to your instance over here and click on details here, click here and this part here and this and 8080 and hit, and you finally see the same thing that you saw inside your normal EC2 instance, which was over here. So this one anyhow is not going to work right now. The reason is I have stopped my Docker container at that point of time. Okay, so if you actually want to see this, we can actually make it to work on both of them. Just a minute, let's just run it this also. So okay, so this one should also work. This is working on this IP 65.1.113.109, and this one is working on a different IP, which is 13.233.174.182. So I have seen that it works via both the ways. I can do it inside one of the instance. I can do it here also. This is how you work on ECR and on ECS. Now, a few advice, try not working on nano or a small or a micro instance when you are working on Docker, because that brings the capacity of your instance down and it becomes difficult to manage that. Second thing, whenever you are doing, you can start with multiple instances as you want. Also, if you want, you can add it as part of your, if you do it as a service, in that case, it works as a cluster. Now you want to add it to a load balancer on whatever way, whatever requirements you have, you can take it ahead from here. So this basically is how you work on your ECR and ECS. Basically, if you see the credit balance, so if you select the instances over here, there are multiple ways of knowing. Now, ideally, the way that should be followed will be that you should go to your monitoring over here and keep a check of how much resources are actually being used. Now, needless to say, you can go and check for this inside your CloudWatch also in real time. Okay, so this much credit balance, this much is actually being used. So it is actually being used only. So if you understand, it is actually using more than the capacity as we speak right now. Okay, so let's just go here, unselect it, make it this, let it load up, and then go and select the next one also. Just change it somewhat so it will show you both the parameters over there. Okay, now Docker, okay, this thing, if you have to work, the easiest one is that you should take the instances which are the latest ones. So ideally go for M6, R6 instances which have more memory, which are also cheaper. Again, in that case, you don't have to worry about the architecture, because if you remember Docker properly, inside Docker, what you do is you just go and create the instances, or you create the image inside Docker. It doesn't matter if that Docker image is working on ARM machine or a x86 machine. For that reason alone, you can go and work on any instance type and the image is going to be same, because Docker image by definition itself does not matter on what environment you are working. First part. So you go and work it on T4G or you work on T3, it's going to remain the same thing only. So you are free to choose any instance which you want. A instances generally are cheaper, AMD instances. So yes, if you go for that, it's better always. Okay, so yep, that's it inside your ECR.